Welcome back to AM Sports Cover 4. Jay, we got some news that I want you and I to come together and discuss because it affects both of our schools, the schools that we root for, both Miami and Florida State. Now, we know that Florida State was the initiator, the big brother of the ACC in terms of trying to get us all out of the grant of rights. And then subsequent to that, Clemson has followed through and filed their own lawsuit in South Carolina. Florida State was somewhat restricted in the way that they had to do it because of the sunshine rules in the state of Florida. They have to actually give notification or call a hearing to, or something like that, in order to actually announce that they're going to sue, which gave the ACC the opportunity to get a jump on FSU. But they couldn't do that to Clemson because Clemson doesn't have such laws in their state. So Clemson has filed that lawsuit. And Jay, now that they filed the lawsuit, they've actually amended the lawsuit as well, Jay. So what Clemson is doing, I'm going to read this here real quick because I want to make sure I get it right. Clemson is alleging that slander, or they're alleging slander from the ACC conference, and they're seeking additional damages, Jay, claiming that the conference made false statements about the grant of rights agreements between the two. And so basically what Clemson is saying is that now they don't have the ability to appropriately negotiate their grant of rights because of the statements that the ACC has made, and they've been restrictive in terms of their ability to go out there and get top dollars for their product, which is their home game. And I think it's interesting, not only what Clemson is saying, but Clemson took a different approach than Florida State to some degree in saying that the way that the grant of rights actually reads, once you exit the conference, the grant of rights no longer is applicable. They're no longer the ACC has no ability to maintain the rights of broadcast relative to Clemson at that moment, or at the moment that they leave the conference. So I thought that was interesting. Florida State didn't take that approach. I know that everybody was all on Florida State talking about, hey, Florida State and the tack that Florida State used with the grant of rights and things of that nature. But Clemson is going for the jugular with this claim, Jay. I like it. The ACC is a terrible conference. I think they owed a fiduciary responsibility to the conference members to try to make sure that the conference remained competitive against the Big Ten and the SEC. I think if you asked me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was definitely competitive. They failed over the last 20 years, and that is partially the reason why, not even partially the reason, I think that's the total reason why they're in the situation that they're currently in. And the ACC is getting attacked on multiple fronts now with Florida State and Clemson. I don't believe North Carolina is going to be able to get involved just due to the way that they're politically structured there in North Carolina. But there may be some other teams that get involved as well, Jay, and I'm excited because I'm ready for us to get out of the ACC. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's good that the two top teams in the ACC are doing something like this. I know other teams have would like to, but for whatever reason, they're not able to. I've read about Miami. Miami was like in the behind the scenes, they want to, but they're kind of stuck for a little while from what I've been reading, what I've been hearing. So that's the reason Miami really hasn't jumped into on that side there. But for the top two teams in the ACC, which are FSU and Clemson, them to be not making noise like this with the ACC, it'll definitely open the floodgates for other schools to try to get in there. To your point, it's different legalities for each state. So that can definitely hold up some other teams that might be trying to follow suit as well. I was reading an article, and it said about that according to the ACC, the conference owns the TV rights until 2036. So I see why FSU and Clemson are really trying to get up out of there because of the way ACC has been lagging behind the other two main conferences, Big Ten and SEC. That's the way they do stuff. So I'm not mad at that at all for Clemson doing this because they have a different option, different way of going about it than what FSU is restricted from doing, North Carolina and whatnot. So I can only think this can only help strengthen FSU's stance. The ACC is going to do everything they can to avoid it, though. We know they're going to try to do everything they can. So hopefully we'll see other teams that if they can get in to help out, they will help out if they're available, if they're able to do so.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see other teams get involved. I think Miami is restricted by the fact that I don't believe Miami has a landing spot just yet, or they have not been confirmed to have a landing spot. Would be my thought as to why they aren't more aggressive. They actually voted for the ACC to have the ability to sue Florida State, which I'm still pissed about. But that's just a sign that they're not in a position to actually lead the conference. Because if they were, I think they'd be trying to blow it up as well. So the ACC might be
Right.
their best option currently. But no, I like what Clemson is doing. It seems like it's going to be a race to the courthouse in terms of the Florida versus the North Carolina lawsuit. Doesn't seem like it's going to get elevated to federal court just based off what some of the experts are saying. So, from my understanding, the way that it would work is whoever gets to the end first, the other state would have to honor it. Now, who's to say that that's going to actually happen? I don't think it's going to get to the end. I think once you get to a point where some bit of information or some uh, I would say either the ACC and ESPN being forced to release specific parts of the agreement would um, push both of them to the negotiating table, or if either party um, has substantial losses or back to back to back losses, then I think that would also force them to the negotiating table such that we'll get something done or completed. Personally, I think it's going to happen before August. I would think, but it's going to take a couple of losses to happen first. And once we see those losses happen back to back to back, or the ACC and ESPN is forced to end the discovery to start to release certain aspects of that contract, I think if that were to happen in Florida, I think you'll see ESPN and ACC run to the negotiating table because they don't want that release, and they'd have some kind of unspecified terms that Florida State would agree to, and then they'd move on. Of course, that stuff always gets out there, Jay. So I don't know if there's a way that, even with the Sunshine State laws, I think Florida State would have to make it known what agreement they entered into with ESPN and the ACC in order to get out. So it'll be interesting. But you guys tell us what you think in the comment section in regards to this. Clemson is revving up the attack. I love it. I'm ready for us to all get out of the ACC and move on to better pastures, and we'll see what ends up happening. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is AM Sports Cover 4, and we are out.